Queridos amigos de Red Prosex, muy buenos días. Nos da mucho gusto, como siempre, compartir con ustedes una vez más este tipo de eventos que nos ayudan a dar a conocer a la comunidad de negocios de exportación e importación del comercio exterior mexicano las oportunidades en el resto del mundo. El día de hoy estamos muy contentos porque tenemos la presencia del Estado de Israel con nosotros y muy brevemente me voy a permitir presentar a nuestro invitado, un gran aliado de Red Prosex y un gran amigo en términos generales. Su nombre es Lior Yaffe y leeré algunas de sus principales experiencias de vida. Actualmente es el consejero económico, es jefe de la misión económica y comercial de Israel en México. Lior también tiene una licenciatura en Derecho y Ciencias Políticas en la Universidad de Tel Aviv, así como en la Universidad de Florida, y una maestría en Ciencias Políticas de la Universidad Hebrea. Todo esto me imagino en Israel, en Jerusalén, ¿no? Fue también pasante del Departamento Civil de la Fiscalía General del Estado, abogado en la Subprocuraduría General de Justicia del Ministerio de Defensa y abogado en el Ministerio de Asuntos Estratégicos y Diplomacia Pública. En el Ministerio de Economía e Industria de Israel, trabajó en el departamento de investment, de inversiones, y también en la parte de la OMC, en la Administración del Comercio Exterior. Ha sido cofundador de 2 empresas con aplicaciones móviles, espero decirlo correctamente, Mesese, Knock Knock y Némesis. Actualmente es especialista en el comercio y desarrollo de negocios, promoviendo intensamente el intercambio comercial de empresas israelíes y mexicanas. Bienvenido, Lior, un gusto tenerte aquí con nosotros, un placer poder compartir. Como tú sabes, Red Prosex pues es una entidad promotora del comercio exterior, estamos trabajando en muchos ámbitos, nos enfocamos en los primeros meses mucho en América Latina y el Caribe, que es una de las grandes prioridades de diversificación de México, pero por supuesto nos interesa trabajar y colaborar con países como el caso de Israel tan interesantes. Si te parece bien, vamos a entrar a algunas preguntas, algunos comentarios de interés, y me gustaría para empezar, Lior, que nos compartieras cómo es la situación económica entre México e Israel actualmente.
So I'm gonna switch.
Sorry, I supposed to do the questions in English, but you catch. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna. So regarding the economic relationship between Israel and Mexico, as a matter of fact, we just celebrate around 20 years of the free trade agreement between Mexico and Israel. And today I can share with you that we just passed the $1 billion trade balance between Israel and Mexico, which from one side is a good thing because you know we just meet one of the benchmarks that we're expecting to have. But from the other hand, there is a great potential because both economies can be complementary in a way. From one side, you have Israel, that is a small country that is mostly concentrating on tech, on technological solutions. While from the other hand, you have the Mexican market, which is one of the biggest markets, not only in Latin America or in America in general, but in the world. So in my opinion, it can be a complementary markets that can contribute from one side to another. And what's also interesting about the trade balance between the countries is that it's almost the same, which means the exportation, the exportation that Israel is exporting to Mexico and vice versa is almost the same. And you can see that while Mexico is exporting more goods to Israel, from the other hand, Israel is exporting more services to Mexico.
Tell us a little bit about those goods being exported from Mexico to Israel, and also what other areas do you see might be an opportunity, and tell us also the reverse. What are the services, the main services that Israel is providing to Mexico?
So the goods that Mexico is exporting to Israel is mostly metal, it can be plastic, it's also maquiladoras. And the services that Israel is sending is in a very diverse areas. It can be in fintech, in telecommunication, in cyber, a lot of HLS, Homeland Security services. So it's very diverse, and in my opinion, and this is one of my responsibility as the Ministry of Economy representative in Mexico, is to explore opportunities to find more areas of collaboration. Because, for example, as I mentioned before, a lot of Israeli companies are looking for Mexican companies that will represent them in Mexico. They have the technology, however, they don't have the knowledge of how to work in the Mexican market. Who are the main players? What are the different states and what to focus? And this is one of the collaboration that I see, is that a lot of Mexican companies can be a representative of the Israeli technology in the Mexican market.
Excellent. How often, I mean, we have this situation with the pandemic, but how often in the past Mexican companies or trade delegations were going to Israel, if they were a lot, and if not, what can we do to improve that situation?
So it's very interesting, because before pandemic you could see a wave of Mexican companies coming to Israel and vice versa. A lot of Israeli companies coming here and exploring different opportunities. During COVID, it's gonna sound familiar for business people. You could see a rise of number of virtual delegations. People that doesn't need to pay I don't know, a $1,000 ticket anymore. They can just open their Zoom and work freely. So at the commercial office we could see a raise of number of virtual delegations. And it's also changed the way that Mexican is doing business in a way, because if it was more traditional in a way, when you have to meet someone face to face and look them in the eyes and have a hug at the end of the meeting, now it's much more to the point and much more shorter. And however, lately, because there is less regulations in the Israeli side regarding COVID, with the numbers of shots that you need to get, or if you need an isolation before or after, when the regulations is down, you can see a number of delegations physically that are coming to Israel and vice versa. And not only from companies, but also from different estados, from different states in Mexico that wants to come and explore some different ideas, or even think regularly how Israel, which is again is a very small country by land and by people, is doing their innovation, because Israel doesn't have any natural resources such as Mexico has. Most of our natural resources is between our ears.
Is the talent of the...
Exactly, it's the talent. So a lot of Mexican states wants to understand what's the engines of innovation that Israel is having. And there are a number of partners that we as an embassy, as the commercial office, is working with in the Israeli government and in the Israeli ecosystem, that can be a great opportunity to understand how exactly does it work. And because again, in Mexico you have a lot of talent. It's everywhere. You can see it not only in Mexico City, but also in the north and in the south. But the question is how to do it correctly. And how can you maximize your resources in order to improve the Mexican talent and take it to the next level.
Talking about that, as you know, Red Process has been trying to supply some of the things that the government, the Mexican government was providing before, no? ProMexico and some other entities. And one of the main activities that we're promoting is the trade mission. So we have plans to do something in Israel pretty soon. But we would like, in the meantime, as you say, use the digital alternative, but also between the embassy, between our friend that we were just talking about, Meni Sandra from the Cámara México-Israel, and Red Process, we would like to explore and to do things locally, internally, to understand more the potential areas to work together. So
no, absolutely, we have the same goal, but from different angle, you can say. But however, it's not in a competitive way. It's a complementary way, because in general we want to create an economic bridge between the two nations. And how do you do it? Not with some slogans. You need to actually have two people in one room and create a business out of it. And again, it seems like the two markets have been worked together very closely and can work together in the future in a very fruitful way. Two
topics that we were talking before. One is there is this nearshoring situation that is becoming a reality. We have been seeing companies from many countries, not only Asia, but from Europe, from even Latin America, trying to set up in Mexico. What are the plans from Israel to try to take an opportunity of that wave in Mexico?
So it seems like because of COVID and because the transportation costs became much higher, and there is a high number of Israeli companies that are located in China or in Asia in general. And because of the cost of transportation, it seems that it became less valuable for them to stay in Asia, and they want to come and establish their factory or their manufacturing capabilities in the northern part of Mexico. So lately I got a high number of requests from Israeli companies to come, and so we will help them to find the right partner, the right Mexican partner, mostly again in the northern part of Mexico, because their general market is in the States.
I imagine the northern precisely because the logistics is easier.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's mostly because of the logistics and because of the cost of manufacturing in Mexico regarding the States, if you compare the two. But again, it's only one example of manufacturing or an opportunity of an Israeli working in the Mexican market. It's more diverse than that. The services that we're providing as an embassy, as the commercial office, is much more than just finding the right partner. We're doing some scouting for different Mexican companies. We're working with international companies that are located in Mexico. We're also working with clusters in different states. And what we're doing is free of cost. We're not charging anything. We're part of the Israeli government, so our sole interest...
What you want is that the companies, the Israeli companies that come and establish get a success,
exactly.
No? And that's your goal.
And since we're the government, we don't have a specific interest in one company over the other, which means that our sole interest is the Mexican side interest, which means if they're looking for a scouting technology, if they're looking for a partnership, for an R&D collaboration with an Israeli company, the sky's the limit here.
What are some of the examples of those companies trying to come into Mexico? What sectors?
I can give you an example. A few weeks ago, I got a request from one of the biggest banks in Mexico that had a problem with anti-fraud technology. So they just, really that easy, just sent me an email. We set up a meeting. They said we're looking for Israeli technology in anti-fraud solutions. I've done my own scouting with my partners in Israel. And you know how it is. Sometimes it's traditional in a way that the embassy is behind that company. It's a legit company that is doing business all around the world, that have good references. So we're customizing the technology that we're providing for that bank specifically. Again, I cannot mention names, but
of course.
But it's again one of the biggest banks, and just one example where I will highly recommend. I know it's going to sound silly, but go to our LinkedIn, check what we're doing, and we can easily collaborate in different areas.
Excellent. Some other topic that you were familiar before in your previous activities is the investment situation.
Right.
You were in charge of attract investment into Israel. Is some Mexican investment in Israel, and how is in the opposite side? How is the investments from Israel in Mexico?
There are a few companies that before COVID were thinking about establishing a shop, like a company, a representation in Israel. A few of them are familiar to all of us. One of them is Rassini, which is an automotive manufacturing company. The second one is, just as an example, is Bimbo, that have a representation in Herzliya, which is just close. It's 5 minutes from Tel Aviv. And what they're looking for is practically technological scouting and how to embed them in their companies and how can they work together. But from the other side, there are hundreds of Israeli companies working in the Mexican market, mostly in agriculture and also in water solutions. I can mention names, but again, it's a high number of Israeli companies that are working in the Mexican market and fully understand the potential that there is here.
Lior, for our export and import community in Mexico, what are the things that Israel Embassy and specifically your area might help the Mexican community to do more business in both ways? That's the purpose of Red Projects, to always push both ways business. That's one. And the other one is what recommendations you can provide to this Mexican foreign trade community.
Sure. Most of the exportation, as we all know, from Mexico is going to the American market, to the States and to Canada.
Yes.
However, as I said at the beginning, there is a free trade agreement that was established, that was signed in 2000 between Israel and Mexico. And just as a quick note, as a quick fact, Israel is the only state in the Middle East that has such an agreement with Mexico, which means that Israel is not only a standalone market, it's a gate for the Middle East. So if you're thinking about expanding, if a company is thinking about expanding their exportation outside of the boundaries of the United States or Canada, and you want to explore some other opportunities in the Middle East, go ahead and explore that free trade agreement. Now, from time to time, the commercial office is having those seminars of how to exploit or how to maximize the different elements of the free trade agreement. For example, if you're exporting a product that is that doesn't have any tariffs or any taxes on it, go ahead and you can export it free of charge. And again, Israel is not a sole market, it's a tiny market, but it's a gate for the Middle East. So again, if in case that you're interested of how to exploit it or how to maximize it, just shoot us an email. We can give you the entire information.
We would like, if possible, obviously you have to evaluate internally, but we would like in the near future to establish a seminar, as you say, to do in this same set, because we have a database of around 14,000 companies that
I just evaluated, and the answer is yes.
Perfect, perfect. So we will just set it up, the timetable, and make a very good seminar. Being such an important area, the logistics, how is the logistics between Mexico and Israel? Because, I mean, as you said before, we are very familiar with the American general, especially with the US, but we are not so familiar understanding the Middle East or Israel as the door entrance to the Middle East.
So it's a great question because it depends on the product that you are sending to that area. And again, if it's food or beverages, you have to ship it in a certain way. But it depends on the product that the specific company is exporting to the state to Israel, and it's case by case mostly. But again, there are a number of collaboration agreements between some exporting companies in Israel and some exporting companies in Mexico that can help you do it.
Okay.
And the different organizations have a direct line, and in case that any problem is aroused, there is always an answer in the other side. And again, we are as an embassy and as a commercial office, we're here to help. The same way that there is a representation of the ministries in Tel Aviv. So which means that there is a Mexican representative that can help you with such an issue.
We didn't finish the investment topic.
Right.
You were talking about some of the companies, Mexican companies establishing in Israel, but how is in the other way?
So during COVID, we could see, I will say, a less number of investment opportunities on both sides. Because of COVID, it makes sense. Companies wanted to segregate themselves and make sure that the wave is moving forward. But today we can see, again, it depends on which type of investment, because as you know, there is a greenfield investment, there is a brownfield investment, and as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the Israeli companies are looking for a brownfield investment, which means an operation that is already taking place, and they just want to plug and play. They want to bring their product, that they want to manufacture it here in the northern part of Mexico. This is one type of an investment. But what's interesting is that the circle of investment in the Israeli side, because it's not as any other countries. Israel is not a big country that can come and establish an automotive manufacturing project. It's mostly about services, as we said at the beginning. So what Israeli companies are looking for is firstly a market that Mexico has. Second thing is a partner. They want to see someone that they can work with. The third thing is a cycle of selling to actually see some profit of it. And the fourth and last chapter is actually finding a representative that will work as the company representative in the Mexican market. So the cycle is a bit different from other investments that we're seeing around the world. And in my opinion, again, it's going to sound like a cliche, but the sky's the limit. There are a number of Israeli companies in different sectors, such as fintech, cyber, retail tech, that are eager to find a Mexican partner that will work with them in this market.
You mentioned the digital world, which is perfect. We can approach Israeli companies in that way, but I assume there will be some trade shows, very important trade shows. Can you mention a couple of them in the near future that we can plan probably to participate?
There is every month or a month and a half, there is a trade show in Israel physically that is concentrated on a different sector. For example, in a month from now, around the end of May, there is one in automotive. It's called EcoMotion.
Okay.
In a few months, there is a planning of having an agriculture one, which again, Mexico is one of the biggest nations in the world that exporting their agriculture products.
Okay.
So there is one there. And again, if I will say a word about agriculture, Israel is mostly specialized in precise agriculture, which means that you can identify in a technological way what's the problem in your crop, how to maximize it in specific crops, which means that you can concentrate on avocado.
Probably you're participating in green tech in Querétaro, no?
Exactly, this is one of our plans to participate.
Okay.
In agriculture and water, we haven't concentrated on that in our conversation, but again, there are so many opportunities in those sectors from both sides. But there is a high number of trade shows that are taking place in Israel, and in case that one of our watchers is considering of going or to participate, just let us know. Let us know, shoot us an email, and we will be more than happy to facilitate their arrival, physically or virtually. From different perspectives, we can guide them who to meet, if it's a governmental representative, if it's a private company. Practically, we're giving services from A to Z when a Mexican business person is coming to Israel.
Excellent. We're almost to finish, but I would like to understand a little bit. The Israeli embassy here in Mexico covers Mexico and what other countries or regions? So
it's Mexico and the Caribbean, mostly. However, from an economic perspective, I'm concentrating specifically on Mexico. Mexico is big enough to have one embassy.
To keep busy.
Exactly, to keep me busy for 24 hours. And in my team, I have 5 other trade officers that are responsible on different sectors, which mean that I'm not a generalist that just providing a free service about general. It's specifically about the sectors that I've been mentioning during our conversation.
Great. And the reason I'm asking you is our president of Red Process, Julio Rodriguez, is also president of not president, executive director from one Caribbean country, Dominican Republic, and we can do so much in that area as well. Okay, we are almost finishing, dear friends from Red Process. We would like to congratulate Lior for his participation, but before closing, I would like a final comment on Lior's side in order to invite you guys to do more business with Israel. There is a huge potential. The services area, as Lior expressed it before, is a nice opportunity, and there are some other activities. But we have to go to the countries. We don't want to only stay in Mexico. Yes, the digital world is fabulous, but we need to visit the countries and also to bring delegations from Israel to Mexico. So please, Lior.
Just as you mentioned, a general invite, whoever is watching us, I will highly recommend, go ahead, check what the different opportunities in Israel and how can we help as an embassy. We're here to serve mostly Israeli companies. However, the Mexican market is a great market for us. We're seeing Mexico as an ally on different elements, not only from an economic perspective, and there is a free trade agreement. It's a great opportunity that companies and exporters can utilize for their good, and we're here to serve. The gates are open. Just contact us. Excellent.
Well, dear friends from Red Process, thanks for your presence. Thanks to Lior, and send our best regards to the ambassador and Goren, and a pleasure to have you here, and we will have you soon with this free trade agreement update.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, and thanks to you, Lior.